Alright, it's day 2 of this. I don't know if I have too much important to talk about yet, but that's life, right? Currently, I'm looking for a house right now, and I think a lot of people are in this situation of everything is very expensive, and life is tough. Life is tough, but it makes it fun. You know, we have all these choices in front of us, all these struggles and difficulties, and we get to make the best of what we have and see where we can go from there, see where the adventure leads us. Uh, Life is this experiment for us, and we like to try new things and see. We have this comparison inside of us where we like to compare ourselves with other individuals and say, okay, this is what this person has, this is what I have. I feel like I'm lacking and I need to go expand into something else. And I think a big challenge that we experience is the internet. That the internet makes most gives us an opportunity, a huge opportunity for a lot of comparison, and it leads us to this feeling of we're not being satisfied, that our life isn't as grand as someone else's, or our life isn't as important as someone else's, and we feel like we're lacking. But we see all these things, and what we don't see, though, is the rest of the story of these other lives that other people have, and the experiences that they have, and everything that goes on behind the scenes. The internet is going to always float the most intense and fringe cases up to the surface. So, you know, everything that's, you know, in the statistical bell curve, you know, that one where there's like, you know, the vast majority of stuff is going to happen here in the middle of the bell curve. And that's where like 90% of people are. And then there's the outliers that are like the 5% on both sides of the extremes of like, okay, there's like the extremely wealthy, the extremely impoverished. And those, for some reason, are a lot of the stories that like to be risen to the surface. Of course, there's always, you know, something in the middle too, but we like the extremes. That's why stories like you know, mass casualties or something makes it to the news and everyone pays attention, because that's fringe case. We don't. That's not very often. Or if there's like extreme generosity happening too, like, oh, look at this guy gave $1 million over to, you know, some stranger. That's also rising to the surface because we don't see that every day. But these are imbalances, and we're getting this concentration of imbalances brought together into the internet. And these are the stories that we like to read, is the imbalanced stories. And then, you know, we're focusing on all these things that are happening that are imbalanced. It's like, look at all this, you know, this person has so much wealth, or this person has so much experience. And we're trying to compare that to our own lives. And we don't feel satisfied with that. So like, why am I here in this regular bell curve, and there's people out there who get to live on the fringe cases? And that's a normal reality. And we compare ourselves like this subconsciously, either by watching the news, or by going through social media, or you know, even going on these vacations and things where we see all these experiences that are we compare ourselves, and we think we think that that is better than this. So I don't know if there's much that we can do about that, except be aware of it. Maybe try to do it less, which is what it is. You know, I think that giving instructions on, like, it's not spend time on social media is a very it's a very hard thing to ask. Or don't, you know, don't have a good time, or don't compare yourself to people having a good time. I think it's very natural for us to do these sorts of things, but keeping it in our mind that we don't have to become the fringe cases, and that it's very unlikely that the bell curve is going to switch to be, everyone's going to be on one extreme. Um, and that's life. That's what we're here for. We're here to play this interesting show, where the vast majority of folks have to play a role that's more normal than the fringe cases. And I think that's very common in everything. Like every organization, if we look at the organizations, we always start to look at the CEOs, and every organization has one CEO and has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of employees, depending on how big the organization is. So everyone looks at the CEO and says, "Wow, look at that! This guy's so wealthy. Like, why can't I do that?" But it took 100,000 people, or 10,000 people, or thousands of people to make that person as successful as they are. And so you can't do the inverse. You can't have 100,000 CEOs and one worker working for 100,000 CEOs, right? It just doesn't work that way. And the harsh reality is that the majority of people are going to be the worker. And it's going, not everyone is going to be extremely wealthy. Not everyone is going to be the CEO of Amazon. It's not going to happen. Or the president. It's not a reality. But we can still do very good things for our own lives. We can still be extremely valuable to ourselves and to those around us. In whatever way that happens to be. If you have great friends, if you have a close connection with family, we make our lives important that way. And often that's more valuable than what people have that are extremely wealthy. I heard some interesting stories that there are some very wealthy folks who just feel more empty and isolated from society. Because when we look at that, the curve again, and we see who's the fringe cases, there's not many people who can relate to the ultra wealthy. So that means they also have a smaller pool of individuals to try and relate to. And they're often all very busy too, on that spectrum there. And it becomes kind of lonely at times. I'm sure not always, but I'm sure there's plenty of wealthy folks who have very rich connections and rich family lives and enjoy the experiences that they have. But sometimes it can be. Sometimes it can be hard to relate. And it's hard for us to relate to them too, because there's just such a gap in experiences. But that's all right. That's perfectly all right. Life is doing things in the exact way that it needs to. And it's all part of the experience of being human. We're all growing. We're all learning different lessons in life. And we all need different lessons. There are some lessons that some people need and some that others need. And there's different ways of going about getting those lessons. And growing and expanding as a human being. We're not going to be perfect. We're definitely not going to be perfect. And that's all right. That's all right. That's part of the fun. Little mistakes. The experience of just doing things. Sometimes even without knowing why we're doing things, we just do them. It's overall just a very unique thing. But anyway, I think we're just about here for day 2. We'll see as this continues on. It's going to be a really interesting challenge to go a full year, or for the rest of the year, and talk about whatever happens. Every day something happens. 10 minutes is not a huge well, maybe it will become a huge commitment, who knows. But that's it. We'll talk as we talk, and we'll go from there. I don't know. I was also thinking about what to do as thumbnails. Usually these videos need kind of thumbnails to just do something. I'm not sure if I'm just going to do random images of random things that come up. Maybe I'll take a picture a day as well, of just something, and post it as the thumbnail. That would be kind of fun. The picture of the day. So we have the discussion of the day and with a picture of the day as a thumbnail. Okay, maybe I'll do that. That sounds like a very good spur of the moment thing. Huh. All right. Well, that's it for today. See you tomorrow.